Make sure the pee is separated fully. Then throw your poop and some worms in a pile. Add a certain focus to finish off the worm hole. You'll have compost if you wait a little while. Use your poop as fertilizer. Use your poop to fertilize. Use poop as fertilizer. 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 Use your poop. Use your poop as fertilizer. Don't become a womanizer. Always give an appetizer. Study hard and you'll be wiser. If you're stuck in an advisor, if it's something whereabouts, you chew your poop on the sides. You choose poop as fertilizer. Use your 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 poop. Use your poop.
Welcome everyone to the Eve Growing Concept. Today's video is going to be about Vermenting Humanure. I want to talk about the different aspects and how it's been going for me. I want to compare it to hot composting, Josph Jenkin's hot composting technique. I want to compare the two. I'm not saying one is better than the other because they're both great alternatives to the sanitation problems of the world. I think they're very feasible. I think we can teach anybody to be a worm farmer. I think we can teach anybody how to master a hot composting bin. And Josph Jenkin's technique, I want to compare it to it only because they're similar, but they're separate. And the beauty about Vermenting Humanure is you don't have to have a composting pile. You can do this anywhere. If you notice in the back here, I have 6 separate bins. I've got 4 fermenting bins, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have where I keep my carbon and my toilet. This is my toilet. This is where I keep all my supplies in here. I have my carbons. I've got newspaper. I've got my toilet and all my grocery bags that have been cut in half. That is where I keep my supplies. This is my toilet. Now the difference between fermenting and hot composting is you do have to separate the ones and the twos. So that's not that good, but it's not that much of a problem. Josph Jenkin's technique, you can do 1 and 2 in the same bin and then have a covered material on hand. With fermenting, you have to separate the two. So basically I have a container where I go to the bathroom, number 1, I put that in there. And then I have my carbon material where I go to the bathroom in here. And this thing here is just a bag that adds stability to the bin because it's such a long drop. The neat thing about fermenting is each time you go, it's a clean bin. So you're not going on top of somebody else's stuff. That's not that big of a deal, I know. But each time, once you're done going to the bathroom, you got to pack it again. You got to pack it for the next time you got to go. So it really is poo. Personal organic output. Everybody has their own personal privy on hand. So this, like Josph Jenkin says, you could put a bathroom anywhere and everywhere.
Early morning and a daily ritual begins. For the young and the old, this railway track is their equivalent of a bathroom. It's a common sight in India where toilets are few and far between. Close to the tracks, around 500 houses make up this slum cluster, and there's not a single toilet in sight. Mary has been living here for the past 25 years. She's always had to go out in the open and takes me with her on a trip she makes every day. The government did try building public toilets here once, she tells me, but they were never completed. With her 2-year-old grandson, she shows me what's left behind. The filth and the stench unbearable.
We have no choice but to go to the railway tracks. Sometimes we come to this, but look at it. It's so dirty.
Children, some as young as 2, squat in the dirt, putting them at serious risk of disease. Only 31% of Indians have access to toilets. The rest of them have to make do in the open like this. Most surprisingly, a recent study by the United Nations has shown that more Indians have access to mobile phones than to toilets.
You pack your bin just like I've showed in other videos. I'll put links below, but that's how you pack it. You do a layer of composting rolls, you put your duff, layer of composting rolls, duff, till it's full. Then you add your 1,500 to 2,500, 3,000 worms. On top of that, you pack it and you leave it for 8 weeks. You shouldn't have to look at it for 8 weeks if the process is done correctly. That is the art of fermenting. Right here, a person like me, this is how many I have to juggle, 3 at any given time. So after this one that I'm working on is complete, I'll put it into this system here, and I'll date it, and I won't open it till 8 weeks. But let me tell you something about Vermenting Humanure. If somebody was to ask me, what the red wiggler's favorite food is, I would have to say hands down, Humanure. They love it. You've never felt any castings like it. It's almost like sifted castings. Every time. It's very consistent. It almost feels like silly sand when it's all done. And you know how I know it's their favorite food? Because at every cycle, I have so many more cocoons. The worms are healthy, big, and fat. But the good news is, like hot composting that kills pathogens, vermiculture, the science is there where it too kills dangerous pathogens. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you what the castings look like, and I'm also going to show you some good research that's going out there. And we need to do more research on what is going on. Testing. One beautiful thing about fermenting and having all these individual containers is you can pinpoint your testing, because each one can be packed with a different material. And as most of you know, I've experimented with all kinds of different things. Roadkill, Humanure especially. And when I first started fermenting Humanure, it was just a test to see what these worms will eat. And I realized it was a turnoff. That's kind of why I don't do too many videos on the subject. But it's an important subject. It's not for everybody, I understand. It's for people who care about our planet. It's for people who understand the severity of the sanitation system of the world. You know, we keep going to the bathroom in our public water supply, and we're not understanding the chemicals that they're to make this water clean again, supposedly clean again. We're not understanding that these chemicals, these chlorines, and whatever else is added could be very harmful for us. I know in my small little town, if you smell our water, it smells so bad like chlorine. And I have a pool out back here where I test the chlorine in my pool, and I test the water supply chlorine. The water supply is always much higher. So that's not a good thing. And those of us who understand chlorine or fluoride in the water understand that this isn't very good. It may look clean, but it's not clean. So let's talk about the difference between Josph Jenkin's hot composting and Vermenting. First of all, with Vermenting, it's a lot quicker, being done in 8 weeks rather than a year or so. So that's good news. And for people who don't have room for hot composting, you can do these in your apartments, condos, boats, and trailers. You do it anywhere. Having the whole sanitation system right there. Where you go, you could dedicate a room to your sanitation. You don't have to have septic tanks. Those of you who follow my channel know that I've been hot composting all my liquids. My liquid nitrogen is what I treat it. So I start with a carbon-based composting pile, and I pack it with the nitrogens that I get from making my worm foods and my nitrogen from my urine. All goes to my hot composting bin. So I feed my solids to my reds and my liquids to my hot composting. So if you people living in New York who want to feed your Humanure to your red wigglers, you're going to have to figure out what to do with your number one. Imagine, it used to be the number one that was the easy thing to deal with, being a nitrogen. You just combine it with 3 parts water and you get yourself a good fertilizer. So that's what you do with it, right? Josph Jenkin, I want to give a thumbs up to that guy, because you know what? He's been talking about this for 40 years. He wrote the Humanure Hand Book, which is an amazing book. He's on his 4th edition, and he makes it better for all of us to even talk about it. You know, the more we talk about it, the more people we can get excited about doing it. And the more people are doing it, the more we can say, we don't want to go to the bathroom in our water supply anymore. Especially when we realize we can handle it ourselves. And all it takes is learning how to hot compost or learn how to worm farm. So that's basically it. You know, I think of Bill Gates. He did the sanitation challenge way back when, right? And he got all these colleges to invent all these amazing dry toilets, which, as you've seen in other of my videos, you can turn any toilet into a dry toilet. So that's very easy to do if you know the art of fermenting and hot compost. It doesn't seem practical in these third world countries where they desperately need a safe place to go to the bathroom. And how safe can you be to take a regular bucket to the privacy of your own home? You go to one separate room. Okay, I'm going to the bathroom now. And you go and you just go to the bathroom. Or you create this machine that is so complicated, and you're not getting them involved in their own manure. You're getting them involved in your version of it. So people have to buy your setup. People have to be paid to maintain your setup. Josph Jenkin's hot composting bin in the Eve growing Vermenting system is free, and it's easy to learn. Would you imagine if Josph Jenkin or myself had $1 million to invest in the science behind the castings? If we can solve the sanitation of the world and make it as simple as feeding our compost to our worms, feeding our compost to our hot composting bins, right where we live. Everybody is taught early in life about composting, about vermiculture, and how to take care of their own personal organic outputs. That's how you solve the sanitation of the world. Bill, you don't create these amazing toilets that nobody understands except the engineers that spent all this time in creating more plastic, more stuff that is just too complicated for the average guy, too complicated for the average person. It does seem like it's all about the almighty buck again. Two options we have. We could use Josph Jenkin's hot composting method, or we can use the Vermenting method. You know, I think of my red wigglers as forming a symbiotic circle, and I don't know who has it better, me or them. Me, who is able to have them turn my Humanure into castings, or them who are getting fed my awesome outputs. I don't know who has it better. I know that worms love Humanure more than any other food I've ever fed them. And this tree right here, you can have, that's where your castings go when you're done using the Humanure. So this whole system is the way I handle Humanure. So these inner city developing countries have room for both Josph Jenkin's hot composting method or my Vermenting method. You have two awesome soil creating ingredients. You've got vermiculture and you've got compost. You join them together along with the Eve growing concept, and you have towers that people can start becoming urban farmers. These people can be turning these inner slums into the Garden of Eden. Picture that as some edible crop. It's a plant right now because I'm here in New England where it's cold as heck. So when you just flush it away, you're wasting all that nutrients that could be fed in your towers. You're sending it to a system. First of all, you're going to the bathroom in the water supply, which is kind of insane. And I'm not dogging people who do, because I've been doing it for, I've been on the planet for a long time, and I'll never catch up to as many times as I've gone. I didn't know. I was ignorant on the subject. It just goes to show you, the more you know you need to know more. And the more you know more, the complicated it gets, right? The more complicated it gets. But I think we're on the right trail. I think Josph Jenkin's hot composting and my Vermenting, our Humanure, that's the avenue we have to take, Bill Gates. Send us the $1 million you send into all these colleges. Let us show you how regular people can learn how to take care of their own poo, their own twos and ones. Josph Jenkin has 40 years of experience. Contact that guy. Contact me. Come test my castings. Because if it's true that vermiculture kills pathogens, that's the route we want to go. If it's true that I can put my worms in a little system like that and just rotate, the only time I take my Humanure out is in the form of worm castings. I don't have to look at it again. And granted, I'm rolling mine up in a carbon, but you could put it in a bag, a biodegradable bag, and throw that right into your Vermenting bin. Probably do the same thing. I've never done it because there's so much carbon around. I'm recycling, I'm reusing. I'm not creating more toilets, more plastic toilets that, you know, they'll work great on the moon or something like that. But in an environment where billions of people need a toilet today, and you're sending all these silly toilets to them, to me, you just want to have a market, a monopoly on the sanitation of the world. And I know that's probably not true, but that's what it seems like with these fantastic toilets you've had people create for you. Let's create a system that's organic. Let's create a system where nature takes care of our ones and twos and make our ones and twos not so complicated anymore. It doesn't have to be complicated. Videos. That's my sanitation system. That's all it takes. And if you've studied any of Josph Jenkin's, his is that simple as well. Let's talk about what I do with potential pathogens in my castings. I put them in my flower beds. So far, the stuff that I'm not going to eat, the edible crops, I don't put it in there yet until the science is actually there that vermiculture does indeed kill pathogens. as good as hot composting does. Again, Josph Jenkin has been growing edible crops for a very long time using his Humanure, using dead animals that he puts in his hot composting bins that kills the pathogens. If Vermiculture is doing the same thing, then we have two amazing organic options of dealing with our personal organic outputs. Let's take a look at these amazing castings that are created by using Humanure. And so a lot of the paper has been taken out of this already, and the beauty about putting it in a composting roll is when there is no paper, the remainder is all castings. So this is basically what it looks like. It's fluffy. Again, it's exactly like sifted castings every time. It's consistent. So this is good news. So this is what it looks like after when I put a poo roll in a bucket to be fermented, I don't have to look at it until it looks like this. There is no smells. There is no unwanted vermin. No bugs trying to get in and get out, because it's similar to Josph Jenkin's hot composting method if done right, because you always got to cover. And with fermenting, you're always covering your material all the time. You cover it first off by putting it in a composting roll, and then once you put a row of composting rolls, then you add some duff on top. So there really isn't any smell. That's why you're able to ferment in your common areas easily. Now right now I'm noting all the cocoons or the worm eggs that are found in every container consistently. So, and there are many of them. This is just the top of them. This is probably 3 inches, and there's all kinds of castings. My worm farm grows exponentially every time a fermenting cycle of Humanure has been complete. Now this is the process where many people probably would have a hard time, but this is what you have to do when you're managing your own poo. You have to go and separate the worms from the actual castings. Are people willing to do that? Are people willing to take the time to do this? That's something I wonder. For myself, I don't mind doing it. I'm amazed every time I empty a fermenting bin that holds my poo. I'm just amazed at the fluffiness of the casting, the many eggs that are found inside there. So I don't mind doing it. And I don't think it with Josph Jenkin's hot composting method as well. It's a process that you have to get involved. You have to go into a bucket, and you have to go and take the time to put it in your composting bin. And for me, this is taking charge of your organic matter. And I think we all can learn this very easily. And we all have to understand that we don't need these municipals taking care of our personal organic outputs. Now, right now, I am packing. I already filled up this other fermenting bin, and I'm putting thousands of worms on top. I've already packed it with poo rolls, and now I'm topping it with these reds. Then I'm going to cap it. I'm going to do a follow-up video on this particular Humanure fermenting bin. Notice how high it is right now. Look at how I've topped it to the very full of this 6-gallon bucket. And I'm going to do a follow-up video after 6 to 8 weeks, because Humanure goes very fast. It's faster than the 8-week deadline that I used to think. Maybe it's because I'm adding more worms these days, and more eggs are inside the duff part that I'm adding as my cover material. It's going a lot faster, so I have to check it probably 6-7 weeks. And we'll notice how far it goes down. Here, right now I'm just making a little air. There's a tube that runs through this fermenting bin that allows aeration inside. So I'm just opening that up. Some time has passed here. Then we cap it. This is a new fermenting bin I'll be doing a follow-up video on. It's been working very well, where the aeration is internal as well as the drainage part of it is internal. So now I'm going to, of course, say that it's Humanure. Green tops mean Humanure. And I'm going to date it. All my green top bins are Humanure. And then I'm going to put it into my system that I keep in my basement. Let's talk about vermiculture killing pathogens in like manner that hot composting does. There's information out there. I'll add some links below on some of the other articles that I've read that this is actually true, that vermiculture does kill pathogens. So in this particular book, I'll show you, here's an article on page 259. It's in the conclusion part that says this. Given this important constraint on the vermicomposting process, the question often arises, can effective pathogen reduction take place during vermicomposting without high temperatures? Based on the accumulating laboratory and field evidence from studies on human pathogens within vermicomposting, the answer is clearly yes. Even in controlled materials that are cold composted without earthworms, reduction of pathogens from initial levels has been observed consistently, although usually not to the same degree as with vermicomposted materials. Earthworms actively appear to be a critical factor leading to the rapid reduction of pathogens.